Hey, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about claims making, social constructions, and pathways to social problems. We're going to start off with a quote. Few influential people involved with the internet claim that it is a good in and of itself. It is a powerful tool for solving social problems, just as it is a tool for making money, finding lost relatives, and receiving medical advice. Or come to that, trading instructions for bombs. So we are first identifying that our culture on a global scale has revolutionized the way that we speak with each other and disseminate or pass around knowledge, right? So through the internet, not all of us, but a large majority of us have access to these kinds of resources, and part of another social movement is to try to get access to these resources for all bodies in every area. So everyone has access to information, to medical advice, to ways of trying to transition their political spaces into something that supports them in their identification more efficiently or effectively. But we can also see that it is a tool. It is a tool that we can utilize in the ways of making claims, in the ways of illuminating social issues, as well as starting to reckon with some of these wounding or oppression of social issues. So first, claims making. Let's do an introduction. So it is based on social constructionist school of thought. Social constructionist is breaking it down as sociologists or as social scientists. We're not, all that creative. A social constructionist school is a socially made idea, right? And so we talked about that before, that a social construction is something that we as a society create and continue to perpetuate by continuing to invest in its existence. So we look at no value judgment on the legitimacy of the assertion is implied by the word claim. So when we say that, we also want to look at how these social constructions, a lot of people can make claims, but we need to start taking a step forward and looking at the accuracy and then the evidence and support behind these claims, especially within the world of online media and dissemination of knowledge. So then who are the claims makers, right? Those who assert that a social problem exists and needs attention by persons in authority. Sometimes these people are moral entrepreneurs or crusaders. Some people are victims. Some people are professional associations or advocates, allies. And then there's a distinction between conscious constituents and interest groups, right? The interest groups are those who are the beneficiaries who will receive the efforts, and then the constituents are individuals who are either activists or allies who want to continue to move this social movement forward. So what is a claim? A morally legitimated demand that a right be recognized or implemented or creative, or a punitive condition be altered or eliminated. So claim right now we have is that we need to eliminate the death penalty because it is inhumane. We need to eliminate isolation or segregation within prisons and jails because it is inhumane. We need to start to implement changes for our political procedures because it is not necessarily representing our desires and our needs as citizens within the U.S. Or it can be an attempt to persuasively define a situation in a particular way and to have that definition become widely accepted as normative as a basis, right, for action. So we can see this now with the movement to recognize and understand individuals who are trans or identify as genderqueer, because we have now constructed that as within dominant society as what is normative or what is widely accepted. We also see this within the movement to have rights for gay bodies or queer bodies, in that they have rights to marry, things of that nature. We also saw this within integration within marriage, that interracial couples can also marry. So within social movements and social issues, we identify within this claims making that either we need to demand that a right be recognized or implemented, or a correction needs to be identified within our systems or an alter, or we need to define a situation in a particular way. We are currently having this as well within Black Lives Matter, which doesn't automatically assume that all lives don't matter, but it illuminates to particular issues in regards to the Black community and how there has been a lack of investment in valuing Black lives and a high rate of police brutality within this particular community. It is also issues in regards to Latino communities and communities of individuals who identify as crazy or the mentally ill population. So in this last one, an example is an attempt to construct and impose a meaning. Impose has negative connotations with it already, so let's just stick with construct a meaning, right? So we want to define this meaning for us. So if we look at the community of the crazed, we have individuals who identify as having a mental illness or as being labeled as having a mental illness, and how we want to redefine that term for us and how we want to redefine how our society sees us and interacts with us. Sorry about that. And what rights we have. So this is for your current event. So you're going to think of the forms taken by claims making, the possible responses to the claims making by authorities, that claims are really situated in vocabulary. Again, going back to this idea of language and how we think about the vocabulary of discomfort, right? How people are stuck with this idea that they don't want to move out of their comfort zone, or that discomfort causes them to stop action. And then how it seeks to resonate with values, and how values are a resource, right? Values are a resource of a capital within our culture. And then what are the forms for claims making, and what is the solicitation of claims by agencies and shaping of claims to mandate of the agency. So think about the current event that you have chosen and what type of claims are being made, and try to answer the best you can these questions. Okay, welcome back. Okay, so we're going to talk about frame alignment. So what is a frame? It's an interpretive scheme, a set of categories through which we perceive and give meaning to the world. It organizes experiences and provides guides for action. What else could we identify as a frame if we think about our sociological language? If you guessed sociological lenses, yes, right? It's the same understanding, right? It's an interpretive schema, right? It's an interpretive idea that is individual to each of us, because we all have our own unique constructions and positions within society and experiences, but it organizes experiences and provides guides for action. So we have been socialized into what we know, how we know, and why we know it, and all of those experiences and understandings and ideologies then guides our actions. So then if we think of frame alignment, it is a process whereby the discourse used by claims makers link the claims makers' interpretive orientations, our frames, to the interpretive orientations of the recipients of the claims-making message. So what does that really mean? So for me to aid others in kind of understanding what my claims are in regards to human rights or into changes that we need to make in our society, I need to help make links between my own frames and your frames, right? So we need to align our frames together so that we can then see outside of the frame of the window or outside of these glasses how we can authenticate and witness other people's experiences. So there are types of frame alignment process. There's value amplification, which idealizing a basic understanding of value, right? Belief amplification, which is trying to dismantle stereotypes, and then there's frame transformation. You don't need to know any of these for the exams or quizzes, but it's really important for us to start to understand frames within the different ways that we see social problems. So condensation symbols are symbols which allow for a multiplicity of definitions or interpretations. They tend to induce emotional responses and provoke value judgments. So by this, the appearance of commonality while masking significant differences in interpretation among various users. So it gives an impression like that there might be some significant differences between us. It helps to build that bridge between. So these symbols, a lot of times we see in artwork or in performance work or in movements, there's a lot of imagery and there's a lot of recalling on our linguistic landscape to provoke emotional responses to start to build those bridges between these two different understandings or different communities. So let's break down social constructions again, right? What is a social construction? It is broadly defined as, right, the way that society constructs something, right? It draws from a long intellectual tradition that asserts that people do not act based on the world itself, but rather upon interpretations of the definition of that world. So what does that really mean, right? So we think again about all of our frameworks, right, and all of our understanding. We utilize our experiences, our knowledge, our socialization to have our sociological lens to interpret and guide our behavior and interpret our environment and how we interact. So social constructionism basically is saying that we as a society create different things within the society, like education, right? Our educational system was created by us and it continues to exist because we believe in it, right? Our government system was created by us and continues to exist because we believe in it. If we stopped believing that it was doing what it was supposed to be doing, we would then start to create a new system, right? Race is not anything based in biology. It is a social construction. We made it up, right? It hasn't existed the same way in history, and it hasn't even existed in some ideas previously, right? So we also see this within gender, right? We have two different ideas of what gender is within a dichotomous relationship of gender, but we also understand that there's lots of different kinds of gender, and gender hasn't always been this way, and it's not geographically similar, right? There's a lot of other areas where gender performance is very, very different, and they accept twin spirit or kind of both male and female experiences simultaneously. A lot of indigenous cultures do this. So then what intellectual tools does this give us? So it emphasizes the relativity of social problems, going back to this idea that context and history really needs to be understood when looking at social problems, and also how social problems are not fixed. It's always been this way, it's going to always be this way. Things change and move. Society is fluid and in flux, and with the development of our society, we can see that there's a lot of change has been happening very, very quickly in a rapid time frame. So this idea that it always has been this way, it always will be this way, is a bit of something that stops our movement or shuts down our conversation, and we need to start to fight against those ideas. So what does careers of social problems mean, right? So how does language influence the way we see socially constructed systems or social issues? Again, looking back at this idea that if we don't have a common language, if we don't have a way that we know how to speak about something, we're not going to speak about it, and it will continue to exist because that's what it does, right? If we don't understand that more of us are experiencing this, more of us are uncomfortable with these ideas, we're not going to want to move forward because we'll feel isolated. So then how does power and privilege influence the way that we see these issues? So we're going to look more into power and privilege, and we've already kind of talked about this, but this idea that some people have a more dominant position in society or more access to resources than other individuals. So if I have access to more resources, or I have a different lifestyle or a different life experience, it's going to influence the way that I see it, because like we were talking about before, I might not see it as a social issue because it doesn't affect my everyday reality, which again is why I need to start expanding my social realms to people who don't think, behave, act, talk, believe exactly the same things that I do, right? So that we can start to see other realities, because people of power and privilege aren't forced to go outside of their normal, comfortable social zones. They can exist within the dominance powers because it is built for them. So within this, power and privilege really influence the way that we see in social issue, because of some of us are forced to see it while some of us are not. Okay, so this is where we're going to go back to our discussion boards, and we're going to look at our current event. So you're going to explore how social institution makes claims about it, look at the career of the social problem, look at how language is being used to explore the social issue, and how does your social issue identify pain, indignity, and insecurity, and whose voices are we hearing or whose voices are being left out. I'm going to put all this in the discussion board anyways, because I know you can't see part of the bottom part because of my face. But this is pretty much it for our discussion, and make sure to check the discussion boards and your online database. If you have any questions, ask each other in the peer help forum, and if you need me, let me know. So we're going to look at intersectionalities of power and privilege more fully. We're going to continue the discussion on power, privilege, and difference with Johnson, and you're going to need to have another current event about a contemporary social issue, not in physical class, obviously,